next subtopic we are going to start is evolution. Students, have you ever wondered the function of appendix in a body? Why is there wisdom tooth in our body? Presence of tailbone in our body? Even though we do not have its use, still they are present in our body? Because these organs were present prior in our ancestors which used them. For example, our ancestors lived in forest. They used to have raw food. So they need wisdom tooth. But now we are very much developed and we eat cooked food, which is soft, easy to chew. So the function of wisdom tooth is not required. But still it is there in our body. So these changes that we observe as compared to our ancestors in our body today, these slow changes is termed as evolution. We will learn the definition. The formation of new species due to changes in specific characters of several generations of living organisms as a response to natural selection. Now, as I said you, the changes that have occurred in us as compared to our ancestors, some specific characters have been changed, have been evolved, have been developed rather, of several generations. Now what happens is, this change being very slow and gradual, that is step-by-step change, it doesn't happen overnight or in a day or two. These changes take a lot of time, years and years, and hence this is a very slow and gradual process. These two terms are very much important, students. Now these changes could be in the space where there is a birth of a new star, planets, and the life on the earth. It includes animal, microorganism, plants, human beings, every living being on earth. So you can also term it as the gradual change occurring in living organisms over a long duration. It is a process wherein different kinds of living organisms are developed. Now we have amphibians, we have reptiles, we have variety of plants, microorganisms, etc. on the planet. Approximately 3.5 billion years ago, it has been believed that life did not exist on planet Earth. Due to various volcanic activities, the gases cooled down later and oceans were formed on the Earth. Now these oceans had simple elements in them. Simple elements were of two types, organic and inorganic. The difference between organic and inorganic is just the difference of presence of carbon. Due to chemical reactions between these organic and inorganic compounds, complex compounds were further formed, such as nucleic acids and proteins that we have studied in the start of the lesson. Due to the chemical reactions between the compounds and the surroundings, first primitive type of cells were formed on the earth in the oceans only. Now primitive means simply the cells were not developed as today. They did not have well-developed nucleus or there was absence of nucleus. Now these primitive cell, students, is also known as last universal common ancestor. Why last common? Because all the organisms that we see today on planet Earth, may it be on rocks, in the air, in the water, on the land, etc. Wherever you find the living organisms, all have been formed by these primitive type of cell. Now it is simply said as per this theory that numerous cells were formed due to these reactions. Some cells did survive, but some became extinct. It is the law of the nature, students. The individuals or the organisms able to adapt to their surrounding environment will always survive. But the ones who are poorly developed or poorly adapt or unable to adapt to the surroundings, unable to fight for them, unable to survive, will get extinct. And hence their genes will never pass on to the next generations, and so you are not able to see n number of organisms that were present previously on the planet. This theory is also termed as natural selection, that we'll be studying in the later part of the lesson. Next, we have theory of evolution. According to this theory, the first living material, as we studied, protoplasm, was formed in the ocean. With due course of time, gradually changes occurred in the unicellular organisms, which larger and more complex organisms were formed. As I said you previously, students, these changes have always been slow and gradual. Now these changes took at least 300 years. It is not an overnight process. I'll repeat once again. The changes and development that we see today in all the living organisms on the planet have been all-round and multi-dimensional, because of which the evolution of different types of organisms have happened. This overall process, the changes that occurred, have always been organizational. It has been progressive development, as in initially we had first primitive cell which was not that developed, then gradually adapting to the changes we had unicellular organisms, then slowly and gradually we have today multicellular organisms and such a huge variety of unicellular and multicellular organisms. We did not have first multicellular then unicellular. It was all progressive development. So according to this theory, progressive development of plants and animals from the ancestors having different structural and functional organization is called evolution. I hope whatever we have studied till now is very much clear to you all, students. For every research, theory or some findings, there are proofs or evidences made available in support of that particular theory. Here also we have 6 different types of evidences to support these theories of evolution. Morphological, anatomical, connecting links, vestigial organ, paleontological and embryological are the evidences that we will be studying now. Let's start one by one and understand what every evidence has got to show us. The first evidence we will be studying is morphological evidence. The term morphology means the study of external and visible features. The first 3 pictures on your screen are of animals. Here we can see the similarities in the structure of mouth, nostrils, position of eyes, the hair distributed on their body, etc. The 3 pictures below are of plant groups. They also have similar features or characters such as leaf shape, leaf venation, leaf petiole, etc. Even though these are from different species, but they have similar external characters. So these features indicate that origin of different animal or plant groups must be the same, having a common ancestor, which we have studied in the previous part. Okay. The next evidence we have is anatomical evidence. Anatomy is the study of internal structures or organs. Here we have the internal structure of a human hand, patagium of a bat, flipper of a whale, and the second one is ox's foreleg. It's not cat. Now, these structures that you can see, the features of these structures show difference. Correct. These organs also have different uses. But the structure of the bones and the bony joints you can see in organs of these animals show similarity. So this similarity in the structure of their bones and the joints once again indicate that these animals may have a common ancestor. The modification, student, is according to their adaptation, their surroundings, the climatic conditions they live in. But the ancestors might be common. The flipper of a whale. The flippers are nothing but the modified forelimbs. Humans have two hands, but whales have flipper. Why so? Because they are adapted for water. Now they need these flippers to change their directions. So accordingly these modifications are present, but the internal structures are quite similar. In the beginning of the evolution part, I asked you a few questions about the use of wisdom tooth, the tailbone, the organ appendix in our body. The answer to those questions is present in this evidence. The third, that is vestigial organs. What are these vestigial organs? The degenerated or the underdeveloped useless organs are called as vestigial organs. Existing organs undergo gradual changes during this evolutionary process. Thus, there is formation of new tissues, organs, etc. In living organism, this sudden development of new tissues or organs is not possible at all. What happens is, a specific structure in the body is sometimes useful under certain conditions. But with the changing environmental condition, the same structure gradually becomes useless or even harmful. Such structures then begin to degenerate and they gradually vanish after a long period of time. Now, this is as per the principle of natural selection. It takes thousands of years for a structure to disappear, as we have studied that evolution is a slow process. These organs are seen in different phases of disappearance in different animals. These vestigial organs are non-functional in certain organisms, but they might be functional in other organisms. Always remember that. Now, for example, appendix. It is useful for grazing, ruminating herbivores such as cows, buffaloes. For them, it is very much useful and it is present in them. So, it is functional. But in humans, it is a vestigial organ. In same manner, muscles of ear pinna, which are useless to humans, but are very much useful for monkeys for movement of ear pinna. Various vestigial organs that we have are tailbone, wisdom teeth, body hair that are present in human being. The wisdom tooth was previously used for the raw food, for chewing the raw food. But now, as I told you previously, we eat cooked food. The food is quite soft to chew. So there is no use of wisdom tooth. But still it is present. Hence, it is termed as vestigial organ. The next we have paleontological evidences. Firstly, we shall see what is paleontology. Paleontology is the study of fossils. What do you mean by fossils, students? We have been hearing this word since years. As you can see in the picture, the fossils are the remains and the impressions of the organism that are remain preserved under the ground. What do you think? How were the dinosaurs studied? The adaptations of dinosaurs, the behavior of dinosaurs, the structure was studied. Because of these remains of these organisms, the remains of skeleton, bones, okay. So, what happens is, during some natural calamities, these organisms die and they get buried under the ground. Now, fossils throw light on their evolutionary process. These remains under the ground help us to study their behavior, their structures, etc., and the evolution, the gradual changes that took from that particular organism to the organism present today. So, these fossils are very important aspect of studying evolution. There is a new term, carbon dating. Carbon dating is a technique to understand the age of a fossil. What happens is, when these animals and plants are alive, they continuously consume carbon. Yes? But after they die, this process comes to an end. Later, in the body of these organisms or the dead bodies, this carbon in the form of C14 undergoes continuous decaying process, whereas the C12 is not radioactive. Therefore, the ratio between C14 and C12 continuously changes. The time passed since the death of that particular plant or animal can be calculated by measuring the radioactivity of C14 and then the ratio of C14 to C12 that is present in the dead body of that particular organism. This is known as carbon dating method. This carbon dating method is used in paleontology. Paleontology, I told, it is the study of fossils, how old that organism would be or how many years before they existed, etc. And anthropology. Anthropology, students, is the study of the behavior and the societies that were present in the past and in the present scenario. Okay. Now this age of fossil, once it has been determined, it becomes very easy to find out about the former organism. Clear? So this is about the paleontological evidence. Now that we have studied carbon dating method, let's see who actually developed this method. There was a scientist named Willard Libby who was awarded with the Nobel Prize in the year 1960 for this invention. The age of the materials that can be determined this method that we studied previously has been published in his journal Radiocarbon. The picture on your screen indicates how the different species gradually were formed from the first living material that is described in the theory of evolution. First, we had invertebrates. With the gradual changes, reptiles, amphibia, pisces, they were formed. That era was called as Paleozoic era. Then Mesozoic era, where you can see presence of dinosaur, which then became extinct. Then we had mammals, aves. This era is known as Cenozoic era. So this is how, with gradual changes, evolution has taken place, and we have a good amount of different species. Next we have connecting links. Now there are some plants and animals that show some morphological characters, the external features by which they can be related to two different groups. We will just look at them. First one is duckbill platypus. Now this duckbill platypus, just like reptiles, it lays eggs. It has scales on its body, and also it shows presence of mammary glands and hair like mammals. Hence, it is the link between the reptiles and mammals. Next, lungfish. The name itself suggests it has lungs irrespective of being a fish. It respires through lungs and it has a fish-like body. So, it can be hence proved that it is a connecting link between the fishes and the amphibians. The last one is very simple to understand. Peripatus. It shows characters like segmented body, that of an earthworm, thin cuticle, parapodia-like organs, and arthropod characters such as tracheal respiration and open circulatory system, which is present in cockroach. So this Peripatus is the connecting link between the arthropod and annelids. There are many such examples, connecting links that indicate that mammals have evolved from reptiles, amphibians have evolved from fishes. The last evidence we have is embryological evidence. For a minute, I would want you all to carefully observe the stages of embryonic development of the different animals shown on your screen. The comparative study of the embryonic developmental stages of all the vertebrates show extreme similarities during the initial stages if you observe. Now these similarities later then gradually disappear in the next developmental stages. But students, the initial similarities clearly indicates that there may be a common origin of all these animals. These animals have a common ancestor. They have originated from a common ancestor. Hence, these evidences prove the theory of evolution to be right, and hence this theory of evolution is accepted worldwide. So here we complete with all the 6 evidences that support the theory of evolution.
Darwin's theory of natural selection. On the basis of the observations, Darwin suggested that only the fittest survive. All those plants and animals which are not fit die. These fit species reproduce and pass on the relevant characteristics to the following generation, which in turn would make them fit for survival. The process of selection of characteristics that contribute to the fitness for survival was called natural selection by Darwin. Why is there a competition between individuals of the same type? There are many differences found even in the individuals of the same species. Some individuals have certain factors to a greater extent than others. If these factors are necessary for survival, then these individuals can survive the struggle for existence. Other individuals who do not possess these factors die. These useful factors appear only in some individuals in the next generation of the species. Here also, in the struggle among the individuals for survival, only those possessing the factors at greater levels survive. This process continues from generation after generations. The total effect is that after several generations, the number of individuals having the relevant factors that are better adapted to their surroundings is much more than in previous generations. These adapted individuals may also be very different from the original species. This process is described as a natural selection of these individuals which have characteristics best adapted for survival. Selection by nature is not deliberate, but is natural. The criterion for the natural selection is only one, that is, successful adaptation for growth and reproduction in the given environment. The natural selection of the individuals best adapted to their environment will be made clear from the following example. A certain variety of moths which often fall prey to birds is found in the surroundings of Birmingham in England. These moths are found in two colors, black, that is melanized, and grey. Both these varieties live on the trunks. Years ago, trees in this particular area were hosts to the growth of algae and fungi and thus were grey in color. Hence, the grey moths were easily camouflaged on the tree trunks and were protected from their predators. The black moths were easily noticed by the predatory birds and were consequently eaten by them in greater numbers. So, the population of grey moths was much higher than the black ones. Later, as a result of Industrial Revolution, there was an increase in the level of pollution. Owing to this, there was hardly any growth of algae or fungi on the tree trunks. Instead, the tree trunks got covered by soot, which gave them a black color. Now, it was the black moths that began to get protection, and the grey ones were easily detected by their predators and consumed by them. Nowadays, in the surroundings of Birmingham, black moths are found in large numbers. The theory of natural selection, which was proposed by Charles Darwin, helped to explain process of the development of living things. However, the theory did not explain how an individual plant or animal acquired factors that made it better adapted to its surroundings. In the course of time, these questions were answered by the discovery of the laws governing heredity and mutation, and thus Darwin's theory came to be universally accepted.
The video clearly explains the theory of natural selection proposed by Charles Darwin. This theory preaches the survival of the fittest. What happens is, students, there is always competition between the organisms for struggle of survival. Take a simple example of a running race in our school. We struggle hard, we practice to win the competition, and the ones who have been really struggling and working hard wins the competition, right? Who is physically fit will come first in the race. In similar manner, those organisms sustain show the modifications essential for winning the competition. The others which are not fit, they are eliminated or they get extinct from the nature. The ones, those who are well adapted, they reproduce more such offsprings and in turn produce new species having specific characters. Now this theory was widely accepted. But there were few objections against this theory. First one, natural selection is not the only factor responsible for evolution. Some more factors were required. Second, Darwin did not mention any explanation about the useful and useless modifications. And the third objection that was raised, there is no explanation about the slow changes and the abrupt changes that we have studied. But in spite of all these objections, Darwin's work on evolution has been a milestone. Next we have is Lamarckism. Now, this was given by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Jean-Baptiste proposed that there are some external changes or morphological changes that occur in living organisms which bring about evolution. Now, why these changes takes place? Because of the use or the disuse of that particular feature or organ. Let's take a simple example. The students who are right-handers, we usually perform all our work with the right hand. Someday, if you use too much of your left hand, it starts paining. Why so? Because you are not actively using your left hand as much your right hand. But we still use it, so it does not disappear, right? What Baptiste Lamarck had to say is, these changes are totally depend upon how actively that organ is used. So on basis of this, he gave a principle of use or disuse of organs. Now, every living organism, students, tries to change, tries to evolve. During its lifetime, it acquires certain characters because of the adaptations and the modifications. Now, this changes or this modifications could be because of the environmental influence, the surroundings, okay, and like I said you how much that particular organ is used or unused. And he also suggested that these characters are passed on to next generation. Let's take few examples. Now, giraffe. As you can see in the picture, the height of all the three giraffe is varying. Previously, giraffe were not of that height as we can see them today. When they were in search for food, they had to try to jump to eat the leaves. The trees were tall, so they tried to extend it, stretch their neck. And for this, gradually extending the neck, because of this, the giraffe gradually evolved. The characters were passed on to next generation, and today we have giraffe which are long necked. So they actively tried to struggle to get the leaves to fill their tummy, and so there was this change brought about in them. Similar way, we have example of snake. Millions years ago, students, it is said that snakes did have limbs, but gradually, due to the burrowing habit, snakes lost their limbs. We can also talk about emu and ostrich. Emu and ostrich are the birds which cannot fly. They are also called as flightless birds. They have wings, but they are very much weak because they did not try to fly. Maybe that could be a reason, and that is why their wings are not that well developed and they are quite weak. If you talk about humans, if you have observed somewhere ironsmith, the ironsmith shoulders are very much strong. Why? Because he has been using it very actively for the hammering movements. Okay, so these are few reasons that, the few examples that Lamarck gave to support his theory. Now, these characters, students, which are gained after the birth or the modifications, are known as acquired characters. These characters are not present since birth. Just remember this. Okay, these are acquired later on and they are then passed to next generations. So, based on these examples, Lamarck gave the theory of inheritance of acquired characters, which is also known as Lamarckism. Now, one more thing he said is ancestry of acquired characters. Same, that living organisms can transfer the characters which is acquired to them to the next generation. But once again, students, even this theory had few drawbacks because of which it was not that much accepted. In fact, it was rejected. First of all, the objection was that the unused organs degenerate and used ones evolve was accepted. But inheritance of such characters, this point was not agreed by other scientists. And the second one, modifications formed are not transferred to the next generation. So because of this reason, the Lamarckism was not that much accepted. Am I clear? So today we complete Lamarckism and we shall continue the next remaining part, which is very small, in the next lecture. Thank you so much.